let's turn to Jonathan Gilligan. I heard them give a presentation at the American Geophysical Union meeting where I also talked in a session on climate change. And um, Jonathan is a user of Energetic. And we also have Richard Reese, who is the creator of Energetic. And so let's have I think it's a great segue to go from new energies to energetic because it's all about creation of energy, clean energy. So go ahead, Jonathan.
Absolutely. This is great. Thank you so much for giving me the chance to talk about this. Richard is the person who really led creating this game. I'm simply a user and a big fan. I learned about this game on Twitter back in the day because a couple of grad students at MIT and a professor at I think Rensselaer had been part of the advisory, and I follow them for energy policy. So I learned about this and thought, this is something I really want to play in the class I teach of intro climate science to get my students learning about climate policy. And so I played this game, half a dozen times, across semesters, typically having large numbers of students in the class, many sets of the game going on. So it's a game about an energy transition to switch New York over to clean energy. The photo you see on this title slide is a bunch of students in my class playing it in 2020. This was literally the day when they had come back from spring break in 2020. That evening, all classes were moved online and everybody left. So this was literally the last thing we did before everything shut down for the pandemic. But the students really loved it. Oops, I've jumped to the end. Let me go one slide at a time. That works better. So the problem here is that we have to move really quickly to meet climate goals in moving clean energy online. But a lot of people get caught up in all the technology of clean energy. There's a lot more to it, and you need broad public support to make these transitions happen. You have to have cooperation across the government, businesses, the public. And so games can be really fabulous, just pedagogically, as public spaces for practice. A game is something that brings people together to try these things out in a low stakes environment for something that has high stakes in the world. And there's a lot of kind of theory and empirical backing to this, is when you're trying to learn to manage complex systems. Very famously, back in the 1980s, Dietrich Dorner came up with this idea of the logic of failure, that your intuition really is lousy at guiding you the first time through managing a complex system. And this is why I loved Kevin talking about Catan New Energy. Playing it the second time is really rewarding because simulations and games give you a chance to do trial and error. If you don't make the errors and get to try over doing something different, you don't learn as much. And so having games is a place where we can do trial and error. People can try out different strategies. Or if you're playing with many copies of the game in a large classroom, I like to end the session with having a debrief and have everybody talk about, well, what did your group do? What did your group do? And they can compare notes. But it's that opportunity to just try things out really helps when you're looking at this. So the way the game is structured here, it has between 4 and 6 players, and it's a completely cooperative game. Either everybody wins or no one wins. But everyone has different roles in this. They're trying to deliver 16 gigawatts of clean energy to New York City by 2035, and they have to manage their budget, so you have to pay for this stuff. You also need public approval. You need to keep the public enthusiastic about this. And part of keeping the public happy is you have to keep the grid stable. So as you're transforming the whole energy supply of New York, if you're producing a lot of blackouts, people are going to get unhappy. You're going to lose popularity. That's going to make it hard to make progress. So the way this is set up, it's a board game. There's a big rectangular board shown here that's a map of New York State. You've got Long Island, where there's a lot of opportunity to build out offshore wind. On the land, people can put solar in. Up in the Hudson Valley, people can be building pumped hydroelectricity for energy storage so that you can store the excess energy and that contribute to grid stability. And there's four players here. There's an activist who's pushing for we've got to get clean energy fast. There's a politician who's concerned about, hey, we've got to bring the public along with us. We can't lose their support. There's an entrepreneur who's concerned with the budget and making sure that they can pay for everything. And there's an engineer who's keeping the grid stable. Every 4 years, they have an election. And basically they rotate around as they're building the energy. So to look at some of the details here, each player has a player card, and I'm showing you the activist and politician here. And so there's also optional roles for a fifth and a sixth, the regulator and a journalist. Each player has a special ability, something they can do to help advance towards clean energy. They have constraints of things they cannot do in their role. And then they have a superpower, which is something they can do once every 4 turns, once every election cycle, where they can do something really big to help their to help this project move forward. So everybody's got certain special abilities they can do, things they can't do, and a superpower. And so they're building solar energy, wind, clean energy, and I'm showing here pictures of some of the tokens that they lay down. So these are like round cardboard tokens they'll lay down on the board in specific places. You put in solar or you put in wind, you have to put in transmission lines to bring that energy to New York City. And then there are some advanced technologies that aren't available at the beginning. Natural gas with carbon capture and storage, advanced nuclear, hydrogen storage, that they need to do research. So part of this is going to be doing the research to unlock these new technologies over time. But each energy has a cost in money that you have to pay, and then it will also affect the grid stability. It'll make the grid more or less stable and make the public happier or unhappier. And some of these you can put anywhere. Some of them you can only put in certain places. The gameplay, each turn is 1 year, and there are action cards. Each player has at least 2 action cards, up to 4 action cards, and you can play up to 2 action cards per turn. And there's 3 different kinds. So I'm showing here in the top row, there's a build card that builds new infrastructure. So this is for wind. It costs 400 energy bucks. It adds 1 gigawatt of power. It reduces public opinion by 2 because people really don't like seeing wind turbines out in Long Island Sound. And it removes 4 from the grid stability. So these are the costs and benefits of it. There's a research card where people will be, once you get 4 research cards for any given kind of thing, you unlock that technology. So if you've been playing advanced nuclear, when you get 4 advanced nuclear cards, you unlock the ability to build advanced nuclear plants. And then there's campaign cards that are around money and public opinion. So this one is showing community outreach, where you go do a community outreach event and gain some public opinion. So after each player has played, then they draw a random event card. That's the pink one on the bottom. And some of those are good things, but some of them are bad things or trouble. So here's a heat wave that, depending on what the level of grid stability is, you may have a blackout and lose a lot of public opinion. So all of these things have this interplay of the money, the grid stability, the public opinion, and then bringing up more and more clean energy supply. Every 4 years, the players roll a dice for an election, and what they have to roll to win depends on public opinion. If they lose the election, then they get less money for the next election cycle to be building their clean energy infrastructure, so everything slows down. And so for me, as somebody who works in the policy end of things, I've really liked playing this game with my students because they get a feeling for how you've got to like be balancing all these different things. You have to think about bringing the public along with you. You have to think about what does the public care about. It's not just the clean energy. They also don't want the blackouts. And having this gives the students a strong sense of this. So far, Richard's organization has distributed 450 game sets. They've got this game is played regularly at 23 universities in the US, UK, Ireland, and India. There's 22 high schools, a lot of them in the New York area, but also businesses, utility companies, and community organizations have been getting interested in it. And some people have been interested in, online things. They've adapted this for Tabletop Simulator on Steam, so it's possible to play this in an online version. And they just received in January a whole big set of mass production. So if you want to buy a copy, they've got plenty of copies to sell. And that's basically what the game's like. We found this has been very popular with students. Students really enjoy it. And it also just quantitatively improves their confidence in feeling they can talk in their communities about this. So this is a couple of quotes from students who've played it. New York high school students: playing this game helped me understand the difficult and almost impossible decision politicians, engineers, and activists and others have to make. I'm going to research how to better understand my role in making New York City greener. Another student said, I began to understand just how many factors go into the climate struggle, from public support to budget to reliability to natural disasters, and realizing that watching the public opinion scale go up and down made me realize how important it is to educate the public. And then my colleague, Jen Bradham, who teaches at Wofford College in Spartanburg, South Carolina, so in a very deep red part of a deep red state, found that students who really didn't come into the class, they're just trying to fill their general science requirement, they don't care about sustainability, got really interested in this through playing the game and felt that this could help them go back and talk to their families and communities about green energy. And Richard led some survey work, which found, as we see here, a whole bunch of things for New York City high school students playing this. The bottom orange is how they felt before playing the game, and the top in green is afterwards. And what we're seeing is, in terms of understanding the process of how to convert New York City to clean energy, very big increase in how many students felt confident in their understanding. Big increase in students feeling confident that they understood the politics. And because they understood the process and the politics, they gained a lot of confidence in feeling they could talk to their family or even to a politician. So you got high school students saying, hey, I could probably talk to somebody in politics about why it's important to convert our city to clean energy. Whereas before, the vast majority of students really did not feel very confident. So this is something where we're seeing playing this game helps people understand the interplay of all the things you got to keep track of, and also increases their confidence in feeling they understand this and they can talk to other people about it. So, shout out to a lot of people who worked with Richard to create the game, and Jesse Jenkins, who's now a professor at Princeton, and Eric Kittinger, who did a lot of beta testing. They're both some of the leading energy policy experts in the country. And so this is something that really is built up with a lot of advice. And somebody was asking about teacher's guides. It comes with an extensive teacher's guide that explains all of why the rules are the way they are. This rule is like this, or this number is like this on this card because of this, so that you can then talk with the students about, if you've got questions about why is the game like this, it's not arbitrary. Here's the facts of how it was created, why we created it this way, and so forth. And I've found that that's been very helpful for me as somebody who uses this in my teaching. And so I've got a QR code and a URL for how to get in touch with Richard and City Atlas if you're interested in learning more or getting a copy of this. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. And I think Richard's also on the line here and could jump in as well.